Hi there! In this video I'm going to show you how to make and use Eyepin style loops, also called a simple loop. Now you can buy pre-made Eyepins, here's one right here, but you can also make your own with wire, which is what I prefer to do. For an Eyepin you probably want to work with anything that's between 22 and 20 gauge wire so that it can fit most of your beads. I have a 20 gauge wire that I'm going to show you with. The tools that you're going to need are going to be a round nose plier, chain nose plier, and a flush cutter. Alright, to start, you'll see I've made a small mark with a Sharpie on my round nose plier. That's the spot on my tool that I'm going to shape all of my loops with so that I can get all of my loops the same size. And depending on what you're making, you might either go smaller or larger and just make a little mark for yourself so that your loops are consistent. Alright, I'm going to work off of this long piece of wire here. I'm going to begin by grabbing the very end of the wire right at that mark that I'd made on my tool. Alright, so I'm going to rotate the plier to shape the wire around the side of it here. I'm going to have to do a couple turns of my wrist to complete the loop. So here we go. Okay. When I get to here, I just have to loosen my grip, pivot the plier back a little bit so that I can continue the shape. And you want to bring it around until the end of the wire has touched the other side, making a letter P shape. At this point now I need to center the loop, and that's called breaking the neck. I'm going to use the round nose plier still, but this time I'm just going to use the very tip of the tool. I'm reaching just through the tip of the, with the tip of the plier, through the inside of the loop there, grasping at the back of the loop where the neck of the loop begins. I'm just going to do a slight twist of the tool to bring that into a centered loop. It's kind of like a lollipop or a balloon shape now. Alright, so that is the same loop that you will find on a pre-made Eyepin. Mine's just a little bit bigger than this one I have here. Okay, so now I want to put a bead on this, and I'm going to show you how you do the loop once you have a bead in the way. So, that cut. Slide my bead down. Alright. So the steps that I'm going to do, there's a couple different techniques. The first one I'm going to show you is trimming the wire down and rolling the loop from the end. What I'm going to do first though is I'm going to put a bend right above my bead here. I'm going to use my chain nose plier. I'm going to keep my bead down against the first loop. I'm going to grab just above my bead, leaving just enough room that I could maybe fit a fingernail in between the two pieces here, and that's going to allow room for the wire to bend. I'm going to hold the bead still and rotate the plier to make a bend, and you can go over between 45 degrees and 90 degrees. So for this one I'm actually going to trim my wire down to about 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to measure from the bend that I made and I'm going to cut it at 3/8. Okay. So there's my trimmed piece of wire. I'm going to grab the round nose plier again. Just like before, I'm going to grab at the very end of the wire, at the line that I marked on my round nose plier. I'm going to hold my bead still, and I'm going to rotate the round nose plier to start to form the loop. And just like before, I can't get all the way around at once. I have to loosen my grip, pivot the plier back to continue to shape the loop. And the goal is going to be to again bring the end of the wire to touch, and it should meet right at the bend that you made above your bead. So there we go. So now I'm going to do one where I don't trim the wire down. So I need to start with another Eyepin loop at the end, and I am going to make sure that I have a flush end, especially with the 20 gauge wire. So I'm just going to trim a little piece off, and be careful when you do this because that little piece could fly up in the air, so I'm just going to shield it. so that it bounces onto the mat and not into my face. Alright, so just like I started the first one, grasping the end of my long piece of wire, couple turns of my wrist to shape a letter P. Now I need to center it, reaching in with the tip of the plier, the round nose, a little twist. There's my eye-pin loop. So get my bead on. Okay. I'm going to do that bend just above the bead like before with the chain nose. Leaving just a tiny little gap. Hold the bead still, rotate the plier. Now instead of trimming the wire down, I'm going to do a slightly different technique. I have my round nose plier in my hand. I'm going to grasp right above the bend that I just made, as close as I can get to being right on top of that bend without undoing it. So now my wire is angling away from me, so what I'm going to do with my bead hanging down is I'm going to pull the wire up and over the plier towards me. When I get to here, I've bumped into the bead, and that's my cue that I need to reposition some things. So I'll loosen my grip in the plier, pivot it around a little, and make sure each time you reposition the plier you are keeping on that line that you marked for yourself. So now that my plier is out of the way, I'm going to swing my wire past the bead and back out to the side. So I've gone a full circle around the plier. And if you find that your loop is not perfectly centered, there's ways to adjust it, but mine looks pretty good, so I'm going to keep it right there. So now with an Eyepin loop, there's no overlapping wire going on, so I need to cut off this excess wire before it goes across the neck of the loop. So I'm going to use my flush cutter. I'm going to reach in with the tip of the cutter just inside the loop, right in front of the neck. Give it a snip. And there's my Eyepin loop. When working with Eyepin loops, also called simple loops, you want to make sure that you open and close them properly when you're connecting the pieces together. Best plier to use is going to be your chain nose plier. I'm going to hook these two pieces together in a style that would be something like a rosary style, where you just have multiple beads linked together with Eyepin loops. So I'm going to find the open side of one of my loops here, right there. I'm going to grasp flat across. Notice I'm not reaching through the loop with the tip of the chain nose plier. Now holding my bead still, I'm going to do a little twist of the plier to bring that loop open to the side. Now I can hook in his friend here. I'm going to grasp in the same spot that I was grabbing before, holding the bead, and swing that wire back close. Make sure you bring it all the way back together. There you go.